Okay, so we are recording. So when this is finished, this is usually one of the questions we have. Where are we going? Will we send out the presentation? We are going to post it on our website. We usually post all of them there. And if you just scroll down where it says webinar, IDRC webinars, we try to pretty much archive all of any trainings that we do for IDRC states or any of the national trainings. So today's will be right above where it says practice Excel CSPR worksheet. So I will put the recording, but everyone will really need this worksheet right here, or I think this training won't be as helpful as it could be if you can pull down this practice sheet. So welcome. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jessica Castaneda. I am going to make my face disappear here in just a little bit because I find it distracting to see it, but just so that you can kind of say hi to everybody. This webinar has been put on by one of the TST groups. So as you all are members of IDRC states, we have work groups that are working on different projects. And one of the work groups is what's called data reconciliation. And they felt that it might be helpful for states to know a little bit more about Excel and some tools that you could be using more to use for CSPR, but also has some applications in just regular use of migrant data. So I wanted to say that in the beginning in case that's not what you're expecting. So I am not an Excel trainer. I always say I'm a jack of all trades, master of nothing, but I do have a good experience working with what we're going to be using today. And I will definitely try to answer your questions. So you're not going to get this from a certified Excel trainer. I'm just going to show you how I use it. And so sometimes, hopefully that will be helpful. And I do know that there are some other people on this call that probably have more experience than I do. So if this is not for you, feel free to to step out and to go go your way on what would be more helpful for you. But I do hope that what I share today will be beneficial. And I am going to make my face go away so that it's not distracting. So let me make sure that I can share the right things for you. So again, everyone pull down that practice Excel CSPR worksheet, and I will share the presentation. Okay, so when we were originally looking at what we're going to be teaching, the idea was that a lot of us, and I got a question already about how to get the worksheet go to the webinar page, and if anyone sees anyone come in with that question, if you'll help me out and just kind of post the link of where that is. It is on that webinar page. Let me see if I can copy and paste it in there one more time. Because I know it's hard sometimes for everybody to see. Thank you, Claudia. So if you go to the webinar page and then right there at the top, there'll be the practice spreadsheet. So when we first started looking at this topic, we were looking at the fact that some of us are data specialists and are really good with certain tools. Some of us may have just begun the job of data specialist and you're trying to figure out different tools and what to use. And so this particular work group, the data reconciliation group, felt like that data in general, recruiters are using data, the specialists are using data, and the more tools we have to be able to use it effectively and quickly will make it easier for all of us. And so one of the main topics that we're going to be talking about today is pivot tables. And so if you're brand new to this, pivot tables in Excel is a way really to just organize your data, to group it, to count it, to kind of it'll show up in a new table, and we'll actually create several of those. And for me, I kind of stumbled on these years ago in Tennessee. I was the coordinator for many, many years. And I, one year, inherited the job of doing the CSPR. And this was brand new. I knew all the data that we were kind of collecting for it. We're using MIS 2000. The reporting features on MIS 2000 were new. And so usually we would just reach out to MIS 2000 and ask them to create a report for us. But my challenge was, I have this huge amount of data and I needed to make sure my male and female count reached out, and my served in this county and this, all my priority kids and my served in the summer, that all the counts would equal out. And so I didn't know anything about pivot tables, and I kind of inherited this project. And as I was looking at all the data, none of the stuff matched out. And we were thinking there's got to be an easier way than literally counting per kid. And this was probably about 17, 18 years ago. Counting this all out and trying to make sure that we have all the numbers, and we'd count it out and then we'd be off by 2 or 3. And so I actually had a data specialist that was working with me, and we both started looking at these pivot tables and realized that this really could be a real answer for our current situation at the time of trying to figure out the CSPR. And so I'm going to share with you from that perspective of how we used it and how I've used it over the years. And I know that there are many, many different ways. And if anyone has any suggestions or hints or, a better way than what I showed, feel free to put that in the chat box. But you would say, well, when am I going to use this? So a lot of times we're deciphering a lot of information, or we want to just figure out how many kids have been served. So if you have a way from your state database to pull down general information, and we'll look at the Excel sheet that you guys are looking at here in just a little bit. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of organize that. And so we used it a lot to check data about enrollments or services. We looked at county counts of like how many kids we had per county and what grade levels they were in, and also maybe what time of year they were coming. So there was a lot of just everyday kind of things that I used this with. And so I can see the application from a recruiter all the way to a data administrator. But today, like I said, this is advanced, but it's also as if you don't know anything about this. So we really found that for us, it saved a lot of headaches. And so I want to kind of look at that spreadsheet that we have for everybody. And I want to show you kind of our final spreadsheet that we used. And let me see if I can make sure I share the right one. And so a lot of this information, it used to be to real kids, but the numbers are not right. The IDs and the student information is not correct. But I wanted to show you kind of how much data we had in this type of spreadsheet. So we start, we have everything from the kids' names to their birth date, to their age, their sex, the race, student ID. And for any of you that do CSPR, you'll recognize a lot of this. Recruiters, if you've never seen the CSPR, this will give you a real appreciation for your data people and the amount of data that they have to kind of decipher and put and figure out. So we had our state IDs, we had the grade. We did something called count enrollment to just make sure that they were enrolled and we have some yeses and nos throughout for our processes. We had our county names, our school district codes. I'm just going to run through this real quick because I think it'll make sense when we see it later. We had whether they were served in the school year, whether they were served in the summer, ELL, special ed. You can see just tons of information. Were they served? Did they have reading during the performance period? Did they have math? Just this insane amount of data that we had to keep track on every single kid throughout the year. And so we had this monster spreadsheet that we would pull from our data system, which was MIS 2000. And so absolutely a complete nightmare to try to just, go to the bottom and do these counts and figure out, how many yeses and how many nos. And so we had about the time, I think we had about 2,000 kids that we were working with. And so we realized wow, with these pivot tables, we could have very quickly see some totals. We could see how many kids per grade level were in each grade level. And we could also see how many of them were served during the performance period. And so this was all using this function that we're going to talk about today and kind of create this. So this is the perspective that I'm going to be sharing with you. And in this practice spreadsheet that you have, you don't have all the pivot tables in here, but the spreadsheet that you have has all of this basic data that you can start with. So I wanted you to have that to be able to play with it in real time. And so we're going to be going back and forth from the presentation to the spreadsheet and kind of doing this in real time. So I will pay attention to the chat box. So if I lose you at all or say something that doesn't make sense, feel free to put that in there. So let's go back to the presentation and kind of give you a little bit more background on some of this. So for us, we absolutely completely had a huge amount of overwhelming CSPR data. And I actually wanted to pull the actual spreadsheet that with some things changed as far as student information. But to give you an example of a real life, those of you that do the CSPR data probably have a better system than this, but this was our system at the time of trying to make sure that everything worked out. And so let's actually kind of, I'm going to give you a little bit of a walkthrough about what it looks like, and then we'll actually do it with the actual form. So in Excel, on the very top, and it might be helpful for me to, well, we'll just look at it here and then we'll go back to the spreadsheet. Under the file, there is something called pivot tables or recommended pivot tables. And so you can go under the insert right there, insert pivot table. And if you click on that, even if you do that right now, if you take a look on the spreadsheet that you currently have and go under there, under insert, you'll see that pivot table and recommended pivot tables. And it'll give you this little guide that'll say, okay, you know, what kind of data do you want? Select the table or the range, and it'll automatically kind of select all the data that you have in this table. And it gives you some other options. So this is just a advanced Excel beginning pivot table training. You can use some other external data sources. It doesn't have to be, you can use it from multiple worksheets, but we're just going to do kind of make sure that you know enough to be dangerous today and be able to start on this. But you can select the table or range that you want. And then you have to decide, do you want it to be in the existing worksheet or do you want to do a new worksheet? So you can kind of click new location, a new worksheet, and then we'll show you in real time in just a second how that works. And then you're going to click OK, and it'll do something similar to this. So this is just an example of, here now it says sheet 1, there's no name or anything. It has now taken all of those fields that I had from all of my columns and put it directly into this, and then given us these 4 little squares. So before we do this in real time, I want you to understand the different parts of these 4 little squares. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll actually practice and use your spreadsheets on there. So if you're following along, go ahead and see if you can do that insert and then pivot table, and it's, just add a new worksheet and it'll show up on the bottom of your page there. If you want to, you can right click on that sheet 1 and rename it. But now we'll do all of that here in just a second. So it says somebody's raised their hand. If you want to just put your comment in the chat box, because we're just going to kind of follow it that way. It says, where is the create pivot table? Up there under the insert. Is this a new? So this is just my presentation slide. So it's just a new, what I'm suggesting is a new worksheet in the same book. That is correct. So this is just my slide here. So I want to talk a little bit about these 4 little areas of pivot table fields and the different ways that the pivot tables work. You'll understand this more as you're actually playing around with it here in just a little bit. And so I pulled some slides from, I'll have the link here in just a little bit of where I got this from, because there's more information if you want to go deeper on pivot tables that we're not going to go into today on the link of where I kind of pulled this from. But they have these 4 different areas: your filters, your columns, your rows, and your values. So values, it says here, are the engine of any analysis because they represent measures. Maybe it's the sum of kids that you have, the sum of amount, if you were doing something with sales or looking at mileage or cost or something, the average rate, but it's your value. It's kind of, the sum of that. If you look at, for example, on this one, this very simple pivot table just has the sum of a sales amount. And so you've got, let's say you have, some salesmen that are selling things. This is the total sum of their sales. So it's not looking at a whole bunch of things. It's just giving you that total. So the cool thing about the pivot tables is it literally could just be, 1 or 2 columns that you want to look at, want summary of different things, or it can be really complex and have a lot of different things in it. So then we have the area of row, and it's pretty straightforward of what a row would be normally in Excel. Like it literally will add a new row. And so the row labels will provide context for the groups by which you place in the value box. So you're going to actually click, you're not going to actually type anything in. You're going to click under your search fields above and choose what you want in the row. And so we will do this and you'll be able to see it. So if you kind of just work with me here for a little bit, I'm just kind of giving you an understanding of how this is, and then we'll actually show you all with that spreadsheet that you have of exactly what happens when you change different things in there. But you're not going to type anything. You're just going to click above on the fields that you want in these different areas. Good question. So for example, this next one is looking at the sum here. You can kind of see, what specifically it pulled something. The value was it wanted the sum of the sales line. The row, they wanted the actual item name. So you can see over here, you've got your total in one, which is coming from your values. And then you've got your item name, which is also coming from the row that you said, hey, I want item name. So that's just an example of that. Then we have the idea of columns. It says this is a powerful feature that lets you split the values column into different buckets. For example, you could see what the sales reps did. You could look at different reps. You can look at different areas, and you'll see it exactly when we do this, when we actually do the spreadsheet, how that works. So here's an example of, adding the rep name here. So you have the item name still, like we talked about before, we still have the total, and then we have these different sales reps. So we can see what Dave Rich did. We can see what Emily Wood did. We can see what Kurt Rutherford did. And so as we add these different values in the column by clicking above, it's going to let us see different things in real time. And so the interesting thing is in the actual tool itself, when you're doing it, you can actually click and it'll change right in front of you. You can say, oh, I don't want that. Or maybe you pick something that's not quite working right. You'll be able to see it right in real time in front of you as you're working on this. So that's helpful to see. Then there's filters. Now filters there's a lot of things you can do with filters, and we're not going to go into every single one of them. And I did include, because I think for our purposes today, some people may get lost in this. So I'm just, again, not being the certified Excel trainer, I'm going to make sure that you can do this when we get off, but there's always more to know. So just to know that filtering lets you actually filter that pivot table data. It lets you pick filters, label the filters, value different filters. And so we'll look at a little bit of that and what that looks like. So for example, if you want to pick filters manually, it says you can check, pick, or multiple items in a list. When you're trying to decide what kind of filters, do you want it to contain this? Do you not want it to contain that? You can kind of pick below on the labels. So there's just a lot of things that you can do with this. It says label is another name for the fields you want to put in the row or the quadrant of the pivot table. And so you can kind of pick on that. So don't get lost here. This is the part where there's a lot you can do. And you can kind of play around with these different things that you can do in the filters. But for what we're doing today, we're going to show you that it can be pretty straightforward. There also is values, like you can tell them, I want to show items that are, above or below a certain amount. It lets you actually, assign fields with specific values. So below I have this link on how to use all these different filters. So if you want to really go into this, like you already know how to do pivot tables, but you want to play with the filters, this link has some good information on how that can be done. So now let's go back to our CSPR data that you guys have, that big, huge, overwhelming spreadsheet. Not meant to overwhelm you, but that's what normally happens, at least for me, that data, I like data, but it's not, sometimes I think it can be completely overwhelming. I want to look at how we can actually play with that and create some different tools. So let me get out of the presentation here for a second. And let's go back to, let me go back to the spreadsheet that you guys have, the practice one. So let's see. Let me see if I can just share my desktop for a second, and we will take a look at this one. Okay, and I can make sure I can share this. Okay, so you guys should have this particular spreadsheet. So if anybody doesn't have it, again, pay attention to the box here, the chat box of what, where to get this at. But everyone should have it. It should look like this. Black lines over the students' names. There are no students' names there. But so let's say we're going to look at some of the general things that we might use, a list for. And so I already have the beginning eligible students pivot table already set up for you over here. You can kind of see that, what it looks like here. But let's go ahead and just kind of create it as if we didn't have it. So we're going to go to insert, and then we're going to go to pivot table. And that question that we saw earlier, you'll see it'll say, well, do you want to select the table or range? So we're going to have everything, we're going to select everything that's in this already. Hold on, let me check this here. So just insert pivot table. So it's going to say, do you want table 1? Yes. We want a new worksheet. We just say, okay. And then we're going to have it in here. And I think I just messed up and didn't count the right thing. So hold on. It's good for you to see. Messing up also. So let's select it. Okay, and then do insert pivot table. And so now so what I did wrong the first time is just didn't tell it exactly the table range. I'm going to press OK. And then now I have this pivot table builder kind of over here on the side. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can kind of see. So the challenge is you have all this, you have this builder, you have all this possible things that you could put in here. So we're going to try something. For the filters, I want you to see if you can find something that says count enrollment. So you're going to click on there. Okay. So it's going to give the count of enrollment. So I'm going to go kind of slow. That way everyone can go along with it. So our goal in this pivot table is to be able to show how many eligible kids are from that big, huge spreadsheet that we just have. So I want it to count the total number of kids that are enrolled. And so I want to put this as one of my, over here with my filters. Okay. So follow along and do the same thing. If I go too fast, we are recording this and you can do this later. We will do it multiple times. So hopefully it will get easier as you go. Now I'm going to look down below and look for something that says age grade. See if it's I'm going to do also age. And let's see if there's one that's age grade together. Let's see. Okay, so this one has age grade together. So I want to add age grade as one of my filters. I don't need the age one that I just put up here, so I'm going to get rid of it. So at this point, your filters should say count enrollment and should say age grade. And it should start looking like this, okay? So I want to, normally we would try to see by county, just kind of how things are, or it could be by school district or whatever you have. So I'm going to go ahead and find my county name and click on it. And I'm going to move the county name down to over here. So right now I can now see my counties. See how quickly it does it just kind of immediately. I have under my filters, if I'm going too fast, I have the count enrollment and I have the age grade. I have under my rows, I have the county name. And then under my values, I have like the count of enrollment. And I also have the count of age. Now I may not, let's see what happens if I get rid of this county name right there. See if as soon as I get rid of that, it kind of goes away. So, and let's put this back under the, so right now I can kind of see, but I don't have, so what do you think I've got, if I want some sort of total, what do you think that I need? Do I need, what else could I put under my values or my columns to be able to actually see the full amount, maybe a total somewhere? What do you think? Maybe put it in the chat box of what, somebody take a look at what you see in there. If you see anything that would help you be able to see the total number of students per grade. So we're already seeing it's already given us the count here. So you can kind of see it's given us the count of enrollment. It's given the count of the age grade and the county name. So it's given all of those. So we, you know, you could say, okay, can I just delete the county name from here? You know, say Sourceville County name. So do I want to say, do I want to count? Do I want to average? So when I click on that, I can see multiple things that I can do. But I don't have to have all of these things over here because I've got count of age, count of enrollment, it's kind of counting everything. But I really want to see I need to see a little bit more information. Maybe I want to see it by grade. So let's see if I add one of my filters down here, kind of play around and see what happens when I move them to different things. So if I moved it down now it's showing me that my rows are showing underneath that I could do this all by grade. How else could I change this? Maybe I don't need all this information and I want you to kind of play around a little bit with what you're doing and see how it changes when you get rid of some of those various things. And I do have a question, so let me see if I can see that. Again, please use the chat box for the question because it's a little bit easier to kind of see that, and then everyone else can see those also. So let's go back to our eligible students one over here, and let's look at what we have here. So we had eligible students. Look at what happens when you do it a little bit different. So under this eligible students one that we kind of created before, we have for the filters count of enrollment, count of age grade. For our rows, we have county name, and for our values, it's just count of age. And then our columns is grade. So let's look at what we did different on this one. It kind of says, okay, our values over here, our original one, the value over here is grade. So this one does not have one. So we need to add grade to our values over here. And you can kind of see, now we have a whole bunch of stuff going on. Saying, okay, what are we doing? So you can go back and say, what did we do different? This eligible one just has the count of age. I'm showing you the different things because sometimes you think you know it and it's like, dang it, why is all this extra stuff coming in? So on this one that we've already finished, we have the count of enrollment, the age grade, Your rows are your county name, values are count of age, columns are grade. And so it can be a little finicky, and I'm purposely wanted to show you that because sometimes you think, why has it got all this extra junk? I don't need this. So let's go to the values and just make it a count of the age. So we can kind of take these and say, I don't need the grade. I don't need all the, let's just look at how can I do this? And now you're saying, oh no, what happened? You can see how this kind of goes kind of crazy. So again, go back to what we had. So count of enrollment, age, grade on this one. Let's check what we got. So age, grade, and then count of enrollment. So this is kind of it can be a little bit of a pain, whereas you move it in here and then you got that. So we've got age, grade, and then our eligible students over here. You can see you've got your count of enrollment, age, grade, columns is your grade, county name. So go ahead and while this is up, go ahead and change yours so that it matches exactly what this one has. And so you should be able to have all of those. So under your filters, count of enrollment, age, grade, county name, count of age, and grade. Let's go ahead and make those changes. And then we'll try a new one. So here is an example. This next one literally is just super simple. You just need to know how many male and female are in each of your areas. So starting from that beginning one again, I need to delete off my one that I messed up in the beginning. Okay, fine. So let's go here to the, to our original spreadsheet that we're starting from. We have it all highlighted. And then we're going to go to insert pivot table. Okay, so just click OK. It's a new worksheet. It's going to give me a new one here. And I'm just going to rename this to sex. That way we know if it's male or female. And we're going to duplicate what this one is. So without knowing anything, anyone in the comment box want to put what fields they might put in the filters, columns, rows, or values for this one? Anyone want to put in the chat box what they think might go, or just play around with it and see? What do we think? So it says, Jessica, I do not have an age, grade, etc. So if you just have age and grade, you can just go ahead and do age and grade. And it says, what is the difference between age, grade, and age separate from grade? So if for some reason you don't have, one thing I've noticed is that between versions of Excel, this was an older version that originally my file, and I noticed on some of ones, you can try it with a grade, you can try it with age. If you don't have it exactly separate, then that's fine. The count enrollment is just the total count of every kid that should be counted. So anytime that you want to, you want to use that. So she says maybe name and grade. So if you're right now, if you're trying to figure out how would we figure out the sex, let's just try something. You can always play around. So right now we have a total count of enrollment right now that's just telling me I have 2,032 kids. But how on earth am I going to figure out, let me make this bigger so you can actually see it. How can I use my pivot table? If I can see it. And I just made it so big that I can't even see my pivot table. I'm not sure. All right, let's just, this is where you see I am not an expert, but I am going to help you walk you through this. So let's see. I don't know what I just did to make mine go away. So I'm going to try that again. So let's see. Insert pivot table. Back on my sheet. So someone says put sex in the row. Okay, so we can do count enrollment. And then let's try just putting sex as one of the rows. Okay, exactly. It's so super tiny you can't even see. It says age and grade under filters row is sex and value is count of enrollment. Okay, so she has age and grade under filters, so we can try that. So let's do age. Okay, and then she has grade. Okay, under filters. So now we're getting a little bit of the count of age, count of grade. So you can just kind of see, do we need grade? Maybe we don't need grade. You can pull that off and see, okay, you're getting a count of age, count of enrollment. Maybe we don't need all of those. Maybe we just need a count of, do we need age for male and female? We wouldn't need that, but you could add more with it. So go ahead and kind of play around with yours. Let's see if I can make it big that you can actually see. The cool thing is you can also say, well, maybe I need race at the same time. So I'm going to add race as one of my rows. And you can kind of see we had different labels for our race, and you can see the different, it'll break it down that way. So one of the things that I suggest is that you kind of play around with it and see what you do get and save what works. So it says select sex box and put it under categories. Okay, so what happens if we move this to, let's just try the column here. You can kind of, depending on where you're wanting, let's say, well, that's not working. You can try each to move these around on your rows and see what happens. So now it's going to tell me my race plus how many male and female there are of each one of those. So the good thing about this is as you're building things, you can kind of play around, and if it's not working, you can say, okay, well, let me try, okay, is it, do I want to see the age broken down to the actual age? You can take things in and out and play with it. And it's dynamic, it will change at the time, and it will mess up if you mess it up. So that's, that's kind of one of the challenges there. Let's try, so I have a finished spreadsheet that I want to show you on, but I want to test you a little bit first to see, let's say on this particular one, playing around right here, we've got all this, let's say, never mind, we don't need these things, let's just get rid of it. So now we're back down to just our count of enrollment. If I wanted to find kids that were served during the performance period, go ahead in the box, tell me what you might do to be able to, I just want to get a list of kids that would, or the total numbers of the kids that were served during the performance period. So take a look at what your options are and tell me what you think might be helpful to put in that. And I do see some questions. For some reason, I just cannot. So if you'll go ahead and put those in the chat box, my question, and it will not, as long as I'm sharing the screen, I can't kind of pull those out. So, so how are we going to do this? So somebody said summer served, school year. So let's tell me where you want me to put that. So tell me whether you want it in filters, columns, rows, values, what do you want? So if I click on school on summer served, I can get a count. Is that giving me what I want? So it says, I just tried to create a pivot table from the report I got from MIS 2000, got an error message saying the pivot table field name is not valid. So you have to kind of highlight it, and then I'd have to see sometimes if there's fields in your sheet that are not all full, sometimes it'll error out. So I might have to kind of see it. I'd have to see it to be able to help you out on that. But if you have data like back to my original spreadsheet, if you have this where it's pretty consistent and all of your fields are clearly titled and you don't have a lot of empty fields and stuff, then it should work pretty good for you. But again, it says the columns that are blank and used as placeholders. So it says, is there a way to click on the pivot table field that you drag into the square to get a count of something versus some? Click on the black arrow and see what undervalue settings. So if you can kind of play around with a lot of the different settings. Let me make sure I understand your question. Is there a way to click on the pivot table field that you drag into the square to get a count of something versus some? I don't know that I'm fully understanding your question, right? Because so you can't, like, you can drag things around within the 4 boxes, but you can't drag them around like on the spreadsheet itself. So let's kind of play around a little bit more and maybe it'll help with this. So Laura Henry says, serve performance period. Let's see what happens. Where do we want to put that at? So we're trying to do, let's do under the columns. Let's just go ahead and try age grade under the columns. Let's do that as our columns. So we're going to take a look at breakdown. As soon as I move that to age grade, I can take a look at each one of my kids by grade to see how many was served. If that's not helpful, I can always get rid of that. And maybe I just need to do age and grade under one of my filters. So now it's going to take a look at the age of grade of everyone that we have. So we've got a count of enrollment over here on values, but maybe we want a count of enrollment over here as one of our filters. So we can kind of see whether we want that. Let's take a look. We can do, I'm going to take and see if I've got age grade here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I've already got age grade over there. Now I'm going to look and see if I see something that says served performance period. So now I see I have a served performance period. I can kind of click on there. So Now, I usually like the county name because a lot of times when I was checking the CSPR, I was trying to look at what I knew we already had in our by each county or by each district. So now I can start seeing, okay, right now they're telling me that there were, so far I'm looking at who was served. So I've got county name. Under the columns, if I want to see it by grade, again, we could kind of put that under there. So let's see, we can see under columns, here's my grade, here it is broken out. And I've got it down here that I don't need. And I can just remove it from right there, so I won't have that extra thing. And so that is something that my computer is making me do here. I can go ahead and have the grade up here. It was automatically putting the value down here, but I could right click on it and then just tell it to remove. So I'm not getting that double, the extent. So now I can kind of look and say, okay, Bedford County, they got 1 4th grader, and I can think about the summer program, think about, this whole, they're during the year, what kind of things that they have. Now I could, instead of the serve performance period, I could do just summer, but you can kind of see changing these columns around, moving things around, it will automatically right in front of me do these things in front of me. So this would be an example of a listing, just a count of the total numbers of, it's totaling my grades, and it's also totaling by county the kids that were served during the summer period or the performance period. So let's say most of us have to figure out who's priority for student, which kids are priority for service. How could we change this and maybe start from scratch? Because I think sometimes it's helpful to kind of think about the whole process. Some of you may be way ahead of us, and I've already got this down, but if this is new, I know that some of you, it's the first time you've ever seen this. So we'll just kind of clear those out. What do you think we could do to, what do you see on here that could be used to be able to show us priority for service? So what do you think? Tell me what you might put in the filter, the columns, the rows, the values. What do you think? Priority for services. Give me some ideas. Okay, someone said counseling. So priority 1. Okay, there we go. So if you wanted to look at services, you could actually break things down and see how many kids got counseling or what your total numbers were for that. But Laura says here, for priority, where's our priority 1? So we could click on here. Right now it's given me the value here, but we could also take a look and say, okay, do we need this? What happens if I put it as one of my filters? So it's giving me this total, but it's kind of counting everybody. It's saying this is priority 1. What maybe I want to see, like, is this everything that I need? Do I need more things? So let's take a look at the age. See if I've got that age grade or just the age. Like some of you just have age or grade. You can just use grade. Let me just use grade, just because some of you may just have that. So maybe I want to pull grade. It's automatically putting it here, but I want it, let's say it's as a column. I can move it up because it automatically thought it should be a value. It doesn't have to be a value. I can move it up. So right now I can kind of see, here's my total, but my total is kind of the same as it was before. So I wonder if it's picking up everything that it needs. Let's see what happens if I just did count enrollment. So you can kind of play around and say, oh, okay, I don't think that that's right. Maybe you kind of see, so this is telling me here to count enrollment. Should I count the enrollment of these kids as priority? It's saying, hey, you have 66 of these that were not priority, 1,966 that were. So it's kind of breaking it down a little bit for me because in our particular data, we're looking at that. Someone said, I hope someday we can have a hands-on training. Someday in this world, we will actually see people in front of us. For right now, I'm hoping that I can give you enough that you can kind of see playing around with these things, with these different values, adding different things to them. You can start saying, okay, I want to see the counties by row. And so now it's telling me how many no's and how many yeses. And I can also say, okay, remove this. It'll start giving me breakdowns of different ways to do this here. So my goal is today to get you to see, yes, she was doing the training and she messed up in front of us because that's what happens. But at the same time, you can see that you have these different fields that you can literally just click on these. It's a really cool way to be able to see things easily and kind of play with it. And so I thought I would show you, let's try another one. For those of you that might be overwhelmed saying, I'm never gonna get this, let's try it here. Let's go ahead and let's get rid of some of these fields here and just watch them go away. You see, as you click on them, they, you know, the county name suddenly goes away, and you can kind of, but you have to understand your data. And I feel like that's sometimes where your data specialists are knowing, okay, I have a report that I have to be able to show how many kids were served during the performance period by counseling. And so you can kind of go through and, sorry, I'm talking too much, I'm losing my voice. You can kind of go through and think about what you would need for that. So let's do one more. Let's do the served in summer. And so maybe you're a recruiter or service provider and you have a list from your database that basically you're going to have to think about what you need from your database. So you may get some errors, let's say from MIS 2000 or whatever system that you have. You're going to need some basic information. You're going to need like the last name and the first name of the kids. You don't have to have this, but if you're trying to use this data and figure out who's served, you should be able to have a report that generates at least these things. It tells you the first, last name of the kids. It can also tell you maybe what county they're in, and then whether they've received service or not. So most of our migrant data programs, we're entering service and we're saying, yes, this summer this kid was served, this one was not. There should be some way in your system that you're able to pull this information back and then get this to be able to then say, you know, your data people usually will be able to produce this, but I do know that several of your states are not at this point. You're in a new system or you're not sure. So you're gonna have to think about the things that you need. You need that first name, last name, you need their county name, and you need if they've been served or not. And if you have some of these basic things, you can use these pivot tables to kind of give you summary data. We know that on this one, we have an insane amount of data. So let's try it again. Let's start from the beginning. Don't do what I did in the beginning and just try to insert a pivot table and there's not any data. You're gonna have to click on this corner, get it all to show up, and then press insert pivot table. So you see here, I've got information that it's asking. It's going to be a new worksheet. You say, okay. And then down below, you see, I now have the chance to start a brand new pivot table. This is the last one we'll do, just kind of playing around because we're going to move on to a couple other things. But I hope that you're comfortable enough to insert it, to know as long as you have that information. But what I'd like you to do is right now we want to count. We want to see how many by county have been served in the summer. So in the chat box, if you could tell me what you think we need to put in the filters, the columns, the rows, and the values to be able to see how many of our kiddos were served in summer. And so those of you that, my spreadsheet is really messy down here below, you can also click on these tabs and rename them. And so we're just going to put this as served, if I can type, in summer. And so it's kind of a long, I'm just going to put served S and S and I'll know what that means. All right, so help me out here. Let's say I don't know what I'm doing, because I probably don't anyway. Tell me, what do you think should be in the filters, columns, rows, values? I want to be able to see who was served in summer, and I'd like to be able to see it by county if at all possible. What do you think? Give me your suggestions. So county name, where do we think we want to put that county name at? So I can see the value, but I really would like to have a row of it. I'd like to see it as row. So automatically, if I put it as row, I can see there they are, except my spreadsheet is so tiny, you probably can't even see it. You can see it off to the side. Here's my rows. So now what? We got this list of county names. It's just given us that. Served in summer. Okay, let's see what it says. Let's see served summer. So here's a count. Let's see if we have, maybe we try filtering it by that. Let's see. And then let's see if we put it on somewhere else. Let's see what happens. Right now it's not doing that. Let's see if I can move it down here, because I've done this so many times where I'm trying to move things to see. So right now they're giving me who was served in summer. Let's see if we have here, let's try some things. Go to my count enrollment. So this is an important field for us. It was really important because we can put it as one of our filters. So it can kind of see, and it keeps putting this down here. I don't have to have all of, maybe I don't want it there. Maybe I just want to see count of, so I've got a filter column. We wanted to maybe see it by grade. So we'll go take it by column over here. Again, it tried to automatically put it down here. I don't want it there. So I can remove it from there. So now I can see, these are my summer. You can kind of see how it's counting there. but maybe let's see what happens if I do count enrollment as one of my values. What happens then? Nope, that doesn't look good. So you can kind of play around and see, how that moves and what's going on. But you can see automatically it will do these different things. So I do have a final spreadsheet that we had kind of created. So I'm gonna, if anyone wants to see a copy of that too, I can see. Let me see where I put it on my computer. We had a lot of this for today. Let's see if I can see it. If not, I'll pull it up in just a little bit. So I'm not seeing it right now, but I'll be able to pull it up in just a second. So let's go back a little bit to the spreadsheet, to the presentation. I'll show you a few more things, and then I do have the final one that I can kind of pull up while we're doing. So if you want to put in the chat box, if you feel a little bit dangerous enough that you could possibly do this, I think that the main thing is to figure out clearly what you're trying to produce, what it is that you need to really be able to see. So, how you're gonna, is it something as simple as just male and female? And make sure that I'm sharing the right thing. I could just be sharing the wrong thing. You got to be able to kind of think about what is it that you're actually wanting to show up. And so the good thing about this is you can kind of build your data. Those of you that are data specialists, I'm sure you use this in different ways than what I'm showing. I just wanted to show from the context of having this, CSPR data and really wanting to be able to go back and check and show this, to be able to make sure that all of our summary, our totals equaled out and our data, worked, then we, then we specifically needed to show this. And so let me go back to my presentation that I had to kind of go a little bit farther on this. So in the actual presentation here, what I did was just as a reminder. So when you're taking a look at, if you wanted to see kids during the performance period, I went ahead and I have the actual fields that I used to come up with that so that you could see it and play with it. But then also have reminders of like, what was the value, what was the row, what was the filter. So that is in the actual presentation, just because I feel like I wanted you to get the practice, but at the same time, for me, sometimes it's helpful to go back and have like a cheat sheet of, okay, if I wanted to see, using that spreadsheet and seeing the different filters, you can see how it changed. And so you can see up at the top, we've got several things going on. Oops, sorry, press the button. You can see under the, why is it doing this? You can see under the filters, let me go up. You can see at the top corner where it says count enrollment and the filters. So when you click on the filters, she's actually, when we created this, you can actually see next to the count enrollment, there's a little arrow button. And under the little arrow button, we're telling it to tell us yes or no. Should they have a Y or yes or no in that? And so there's different things that you can tell them with your filters there. And so you can see the examples on there. So here's the summer service one of what's changing. We're still counting that enrollment. We're still looking at the age and grade. Now we add, served in summer. So I just wanted you to have kind of a cheat sheet to go back to kind of see that. Let me check my time here. Okay. So again, the same thing with this next one for priority service. You can see the difference and see what happens. So this is just a reminder of what, if you want to create this as kind of homework, you can see doing all of these different ones, you could actually kind of just follow along and be able to create those different things. So if you're feeling like, oh shoot, I know, I'm not sure this is just enough to just kind of overwhelm me. I hope that that's not what's happening, but there are several really good websites of like Excel hacks and easy, ways to do pivot tables and best keyboard shortcuts. So I do have those included in if that would be helpful. But I do want to show you two other resources before we finish today. So one is VLookUp, and I know that some people absolutely despise this. And I do have a link here that I'm going to show you, kind of some resources that you can use for that. And then one that I have heard from suggestion from one of the girls on our one of the TST, actually from Sarah Seamount from Idaho, she suggested a different tool, and I'm going to share that with you. But I do want to just show you a really simple video on what is VLookUp. It's not always this simple, but I want you to understand the concept. So thank you, Matt. Their Google Sheets does not have pivot tables. That's true. There are things that are in Excel that you cannot get in Google Sheets. And so you'll need to kind of, have access to Excel to be able to do that. Thanks, Matt, for that. Okay, so I'm going to make this large.
VLookUp is one of Excel's most powerful.
And make sure that I can share this in a way that you can actually hear it, which would be helpful. So I will share this. If you will put in the box if you can hear it, just because I can't see and I don't want to waste your next 3 minutes of your life here. So as soon as I start the video, if you can hear it, then we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so I will play this.
Lookup functions. If your data is organized into vertical columns, you can use the VLookUp function to search for a value in the first column of your data table and return a corresponding value from another column. The easiest way to understand this function is to look at an example, so let's get started. Here we have a table of data containing order information. We can use VLookUp to locate a product based on a particular order ID value. To get started, let's begin by entering the VLookUp command. As you can see, the VLookUp function takes 4 parameters. The first parameter we will enter is the value that we are trying to locate in the first column of the table. In our example, we want to search for order ID number 10251. The second parameter we will need to enter is the table or source of the data VLookUp will use. The range provided must include both the first column that will be searched for our first parameter value and the column containing our hopeful result. You will provide either a range of cells or a named range for this parameter. For example, we will enter the range A1 to B6. The third parameter we must enter is the position number in the table where the return value can be found. A value of 1 indicates the first column in the table, a value of 2 indicates a second column, and so on. Since we are looking for the name of a product, we will enter a 2, which represents cells B1 to B6. Finally, and most importantly, is VLookUp's fourth parameter. This parameter determines whether an exact match or an approximate match will be done when looking for the first parameter. A value of false means that VLookUp is looking for an exact match. A value of true means that an approximate or close match will be returned. Unless you have a specific reason for looking for an approximate match, you should always use false to return an exact match. Otherwise, the VLookUp could return some unexpected results. Now that we have entered all of VLookUp's parameters, let's complete the command to examine the result. You should see the product name pairs appear. Pairs is the product name that corresponds to the order ID number 10251 that we searched for. This covers a simple example of how to use Excel's VLookUp function. If you would like to see more VLookUp examples or would like to download the sample data we used for this tutorial, please visit our website at techonthenet.com.
Okay, so for our time today, we don't have tons of time to show a lot of the VLookUp things about it. So I do have several resources of just kind of understanding how to do that and kind of what you're, there's another video below. I did, after Sarah emailed me and said, don't teach them VLookUp, there's a way better way to do this. And so when I kind of looked into it, I thought, wow, this is a really cool thing. There is one other, let me show you one other real quick video real quick, just to see if I can get it up. Okay, get this started here in just a second. This is one other tool that is completely different tool, and they have a lot of resources to be able to make things in Excel a lot easier. And so let me go ahead and share this with you. It's about 3 minutes. And you kind of see that.
If you knew a secret of efficiency in Excel, would you share it with others? The thing is, we know one, and we want to share it with you. Let me introduce Ultimate Suite, a professional toolbox that streamlines over 50 daily processes in your tables. It adds new Excel tabs with several groups of add-ins designed and built for particular tasks. Some help you combine data the way you need, some deal with duplicates, and others let you rearrange tables. So instead of writing complex formulas or macros, all you need to do is click the icon, choose Options, and get the results. Let me show you an example. Say you receive a new list of orders, but some details are missing. Well, you have them only in a different spreadsheet. What will you do? VLookUp index and match functions are not the quickest solution. It's right here. Click Merge Two Tables. You'll see your list selected. Pick the lookup table with the details. Select the matching columns to compare, the ones to update, and the new ones to add. Of course, all additional options are covered, like updating only empty cells or adding a status. Click Finish and see all the details where they belong. Or you may want to compare tables to see the repeated values. Select the second table. Say that you want to find duplicates. Pick the key column with the order IDs and choose what to do with the results. Whether you combine, search, or calculate your records, you will find the right assistant here. There are over 50 tools that deal with numbers, formulas, and even text. You can try Ultimate Suite as your assistant for a week, and you'll see how it turns every tedious process into a couple of simple steps. Or buy a license, and if you don't find the right tools, you can freely return it. But see what else it gives you. You can use all AbleBits tools on 2 computers with any modern version of Windows and Excel. Whenever you have questions or need help, you can contact our experienced support team by email, live chat, phone, or on the forum. They're always eager to find a solution to your task and answer the questions you have. When your colleagues see the speed you tackle any Excel issues and they'll want to be as productive, feel free to take advantage of our generous volume discounts or a special corporate plan that provides simple installation for all users. Last but not least, see what thousands of our customers are saying.
Okay, so this particular resource, I was really looking at this is new to me, and so Sarah had mentioned it, and then taking a look at what they offer. There's a lot of things that I have spent a lot of time trying to do in Excel that it looks like you can do it, and it looks like the cost is currently for a lifetime license is $69. So it's kind of looks like a decent looks like, it says what Excel version is that. Mine does not look like that, so I'm not sure which one. But so anyway, this is something that you can use if this is something that's helpful. That version that they had was the version that was with the extra add-in, when it adds those add-ins, because most of those add-ins are not, they're not in Excel. That's why they're selling this extra product. So just wanted you to be able to have that resource if that's something that might be helpful, because it might save you some time if you're spending a decent amount of time in Excel. So we're running out of time. I do have, it says, there a way to compare a list of names generated from MIS 2000 to a list of names from M6. So if you could pull those, that tool that we just showed, there, you could actually compare the 2 different spreadsheets and ask it to look maybe name and date and birth date compared to them. If you can download, lists from M6 compared to lists from that tool that we just had, this tool mentioned right here, this AbleBits, they do have a tool in there that you can just compare those 2 spreadsheets and see the difference. So that's the fastest way that I would know how to do that. But a good question. It says takes forever for the, okay, for a DOE. Well, it's $69. If it may be worth just pulling it out of buying yourself a Christmas present, a late Christmas present there, if it makes your life, so it's just an option right there. Unless someone else knows of a better way to do that, you can put that in the chat box. So if I could ask just a favor, we do everything that we do. We're always required to just be able to show those that are over us if we are being effective in what we're doing. And so I do have, we're always asking you guys to fill this out, but we do have an evaluation, if you can, of any of the IDRC trainings that you go to. That helps my boss know that if I'm doing something, hopefully that's effective for everybody. And then it also gives you a chance to be able to provide us any feedback or something that would be helpful. I know it would be way better to have an Excel training in person and have someone say, hey, look what happened, this didn't work. But in the current world that we are right now, we're just trying to put hopefully helpful training out there for all of you guys from wherever we are as we all stare at our screens. So I do hope this was helpful. I do appreciate you guys' patience. Again, I am not a professional Excel trainer. I just know that there are a lot of tools that are helpful. And I do think that I have learned a lot from different IDRC members and just everyone that I've been able to have contact of when, you know, I attend someone else's training. So thank you guys for your attendance today. We are recording this. I will stop recording right now and we will post that so that if you